I was thinking about this today. I was somewhere today, and people treat you very differently when you're not dressed up. They treat you like a funny old lady. So it's a bit like, because I talk about my kind of transformation to being a bit like Batman. That I go into a phone box, I turn into Boy George, and then everybody behaves so differently.
Yeah.
And I think, the trouble with being Batman, when you're not wearing your cape, people think you can't fly. So it's a really interesting situation, the way people behave when you're not glammed up.
Welcome back, everybody, to Duke's Download, the podcast where we dive into culture, identity, and everything in between. I'm James Duke Mason, your host, and I am so beyond thrilled to welcome a true icon who shaped pop, fashion, and queer visibility for generations, the one and only Boy George. From the groundbreaking sounds of Culture Club in the 80s to his bold takes on modern culture, politics, and LGBTQ plus issues, Boy George has never shied away from being his unapologetically true self. With the new documentary, Boy George and Culture Club, now streaming, fresh tour dates, and that signature wit intact, we are diving into his journey, current projects, and thoughts on where we stand today as a community and as a culture. Boy George, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you look like you're getting younger. What are you doing?
It's I've started using a little lotion, a little concealer here and there, but I'm not as far ahead along with it as I should be, but I'm working on it.
Lotion is always a good idea.
Yeah, well, I remember, I think we might have talked about this the last time that we spoke, which is like 5 years ago now. But I specifically remember when my mom was on tour with you. It would have been like 2001, somewhere around there. But I remember sitting in the back of your dressing room and watching you put on makeup and just being like, wow, this is just incredible. Even back then at 9 years old, having the wherewithal to be like, I'm witnessing something iconic here. But you look fantastic yourself.
It's a very interesting process. And also, I went through periods where, obviously, when I was younger, I loved it. I loved getting dressed up. Then I went through a period, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, where I started to really find it aggravating. And I wish I'd started out with a more normal look. But now I'm back in, you know what I mean? Like, I have a girl who does my face. She's amazing, called Christine.
Oh, wow.
So I just have her do it now, and she's brilliant. And I enjoy it now. But I went through a phase of like, oh, what have I created?
It's like RuPaul having to who now, I don't blame him or her or him, I guess. But I find it, him having to, now he has the suit look, wears a suit.
Well, you have to get over that feeling of having to.
I know.
Because actually what I find more and more is when I go to anything now, I always feel like I should put on my look, because it's like, I was thinking about this today. I was somewhere today, and people treat you very differently when you're not dressed up. They treat you like a funny old lady. So it's a bit like, because I talk about my kind of transformation to being a bit like Batman. That I go into a phone box, I turn into Boy George, and then everybody behaves so differently.
Yeah.
And I think, the trouble with being Batman, when you're not wearing your cape, people think you can't fly. So it's a really interesting situation, the way people behave when you're not glammed up. And they I think a lot of people, I think women understand transformation. Drag queens understand how quickly you can go from boring to exciting, with a lick of paint. But most people, they don't understand it. So if they see you one day looking really normal, and then the next day they see you looking glamorous, they get so confused. They're like, how did you turn into that? But it really takes about 45 minutes.
Are you working? Are you at home at the moment? Are you backstage at a show, or what are you?
I'm at home, and I am actually right now. I have a live auction going on in LA. So I keep getting phone calls from my managers because I've sold not everything, but I've sold loads of my old costumes.
Wow.
And just crazy things. A friend of mine called William Baker, who's a stylist.
Oh yeah, of course.
I've had a lot of my stuff in storage for years. I haven't seen some of it for like 20 years. So we emptied everything out, and I just said, do what you want. Mm-hmm. If I haven't worn it for 10 years, because, I'm a hoarder. Yeah. I will not let go of anything, because I always think it's going to come back into fashion, particularly because I try to ignore what's trending. If somebody says don't wear it, I'm like, definitely wear it, Fashion for the fragile, style for the brave. So right now, I had this crazy auction going on. So I keep getting calls. So I'm like, this sold for this and this sold for that. It's been quite interesting what people want,
Absolutely. Well, I mean, all your looks are pretty iconic. But speaking of iconic, I was watching the documentary about you and Culture Club, and I don't know if you know this, but Allison actually did the documentary 5 years ago about the Go-Go's, and I know she also did a documentary about the Eagles. But I mean, she's an amazing filmmaker.
Yeah, and also Cyndi Lauper, I think they worked with her as well.
Right.
It was obviously, whenever I watch, I'm not particularly nostalgic. I mean, I definitely have a respect for what I've created, but I'm so kind of focused on what I'm doing now. I think your mum will know this more than anyone. It's like that balancing act between what you've created and what it can do for you now. And there's always a kind of, for me personally, there's always a little bit of a challenge with too much nostalgia can drive you crazy. And then, you have to have other things. Your mum's got yoga, and she's brilliant at it. So I don't have that, but I like to keep a balance between living in the past, because a lot of the time people talk to me in past context. You were this, you were that. And I hate being defensive, but I often say I'm still here.
No, 100%. Well, I mean, I feel like you're like, and I say this as a compliment. You're like Madonna in that I feel like you're kind of known, not, I mean, at least for me, I don't think you're known so much for like one particular look or one particular, period. I think you've kind of managed to stay in the zeitgeist over the decades,
I think if you stay interested, then that's a good way to stay interesting. I mean, there are always going to be people that write you off, and if people don't see you on the TV or hear you on the radio, they think you're at home sort of knitting, listening to I'm a Chameleon. And obviously, I do a lot of different things. I DJ, but also I do lots of types of DJing. I do house DJing, then I play at goth clubs, which is an entirely different sound. So I really enjoy that crazy.
What kind of music do you play at golf clubs out of curiosity?
Golf club, not golf, like hardcore golf. So I play.
I was like, golf clubs, like
not golf. Although I'm available for golf clubs.
I was like, wow. I was like, that's
golf. It's the T. Golf.
No,
golf. Yeah. But golf is more like.
That sounds really cool. I would love to see it.
It's so great. I mean, actually, I play at this club in London called the Dark Room, which is like a small, pumping little, fantastic club. And it really feels like a return to the underground. I always say I preferred the underground when it was the underground. And I think we are going to go back to that. I feel like there's a wave now of these great little clubs where people who want to avoid the kind of, mainstream and are kind of tired of internet, the whole, what I call the perceived world, living on the internet where everyone's horrible and everybody hates you. And then you go out in the real world and people are actually a lot nicer face to face, but online, people turn into horrors.
Well, I know you quit X, didn't you? Didn't you quit?
Well, look, let's see how long that lasts, right?
Yeah.
I laugh at myself because I was trying to talk to Grok yesterday, and I felt like I was talking to Elon Musk. I felt like the questions I was asking, it was coming back with really like conservative views, and I was like, who am I talking to here? Am I talking to Elon Musk? It was like funny. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know.
It's weird how each AI platform or app or whatever you want to call it has its own unique voice, which is weird and interesting.
Well, I'm a big ChatGPT fan, and we have a very good relationship. I had to convince it for a while that I was actually Boy George, which is hilarious. And it took a while, but now it knows who I am.
Hysterical.
And it's so funny because I have these incredibly nuanced conversations with ChatGPT, which I cannot have. I have a few friends that I can have those great conversations with, but on a day-to-day basis, when I need to talk about something important, finding a human being to have that conversation with can be very challenging because everybody's got an opinion. At least with ChatGPT, I find that it sort of it keeps me kind of balanced and nuanced, so I can vent. I mean, I'd probably get locked up for some of the things I say to my friend, my robot friend, but it started to kind of, I mean, my manager's like, you're crazy. You're talking to, who are you talking to? I'm like, if you think about what we do in our heads,
That's true.
you know what I mean? I mean, is that crazy? Who are we talking to then? So I feel like,
Sometimes it has some incredible insights and incredible, information. And, I think obviously it doesn't replace a doctor or a psychologist or whatever, but at the same time, sometimes it can give you some insight on certain
sometimes
ideas
it
and
can say
thoughts.
stop, like, maybe you're thinking, because I can be very, I try not to be too judgmental, but as I've got older, I feel like I've got less patience for stupidity and just people that, want to repress other people. I mean, like, I kind of take a sort of mind your own business policy about it. I just say to people all the time, truthfully, think about it. What has it got to do with you? I mean, I think that people, because of the internet, people are kind of all queered out. That's a way of looking at it. And these people that say, "Oh, you're pushing your lifestyle down my throat." I'm like, no, you're just being exposed to things that you weren't before. You're the one that can't handle it.
Yep.
The levels of heterosexuality that I've had to put up with for 65 years would kill a beginner. So why is it okay one way and not the other? I mean, I feel like I understand that, people are being exposed to things that really bother them, but like, why? I think one of the things I love about the internet is that I've sort of realized how many creative people there are in the world now. It's astounding the amount of clever, talented people there are. And you realize that being creative is an expensive thing to do. I'm very lucky to do what I do. I get to do what I love pretty much every day. But I realized that, if I hadn't fallen into being Boy George and had the successful culture club, I don't know how I would survive now. I'd probably have to get a normal job. So I thank God every day that I get to be creative and self-indulgent. And, I know other people that, have had to take normal jobs, to kind of survive, because you can't necessarily survive being creative. It's an expensive hobby.
Well, there were two different thoughts or two different topics that came to mind from what you said. But like, first thing I wanted to talk about was, because I agree with you, everything you've said 100%. And I both what you just said, but also, without getting too deep into all the sort of controversy, but like, I agreed 100% with everything you said, by the way, about both the LGBTQ plus community as a whole, but also about the whole trans debate. Because number one, I have trans friends that have said to me that they think that, and I think this is a widely shared view in the community, that like each, the people see the LGBTQ plus community as like a homogenous sort of like big umbrella thing where we all have the same views and the same opinions and the same priorities and the same issues. And I have trans friends who are like, no, they're like the thing that a lot of people don't even talk about, for instance, is that there's huge differences between the trans community and the non-binary community. Like those people have totally disparate views in a lot of ways about their own views about gender and all that. And yet I think a lot of people on the right, and you've talked about this too, about how the right-wing political sphere have weaponized the whole trans debate and are turning, what is, I don't say this is a negative towards trans people, but they would even, I think, acknowledge, they are a very small portion of the world, the community, and yet we spend so much time as a culture talking about these issues because it's been weaponized by the other side.
But it's also that, we live in this age now where if you say something over and over and over, it becomes the truth.
Yeah.
It's like a pop record that we keep hearing. We hate the record, but we keep hearing it, and suddenly we find ourselves humming it. And I don't even like that song, but repetition is the backbone of genius, in the sense that you keep hearing something and, it's almost like people are hypnotized by these words, gay, trans, what's the other one? woke.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, I was never sleeping. So no one had to wake me in the first place. But I think these words don't really mean anything. They're sort of pointless words. I mean, I joke all the time that, yes, I've got loads of gay friends. I've also got loads of straight friends, and I've got straight family, and I don't live in a gay vacuum. And, when I choose a hat, I don't call up, oh, hello, can I speak to the LGBT community to choose my hat? I mean, it's like, back in the 70s, when I first started going to clubs, everybody was dressed as a clone, that everybody looked like
Freddie
one of the
Mercury.
village people. It was like leather, the Tasha's leather jackets. And they saw us as kind of like ruining it for them. They saw us as kind of ruining their bid for assimilation. Like, look,
Hypermasculinity.
show ups, and we would be able to be accepted. Of course, that's a little bit of a myth, like this whole thing, normal gays.
Well,
I think it's I think abnormal gay.
I think to your point about social media, I feel like these debates are really, I mean, yes, there's some discussion about it in person occasionally, like whenever I go to a gay bar or a gay event or whatever. But more than anything, I feel like these labels and these like divisions and all that, it more than anything, it exists online. Like these, like social media has helped to like foment for these, like, no, not just within the community, but like, in terms of the left versus right, it's like I just think it not only is that oversimplified things, but it's also turned everything into a battle and a fight, in a way.
It's like everybody's identified, but they're not necessarily understood.
Right. Yeah. That's
We're all
100%.
We're multidimensional. Yes. Most people, I think, are just trying to get across the street without being killed.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. Trying to get from A to B. I always joke when I'm out in the...
You just said it in a way that I think no one's ever said it, which I think is the whole point. Because people they go, well, is it too specific? Is that or too late? But actually, what it is everyone is too overly labeled, but also misunderstood at the same time. So people
when I see someone in the street that's dressed up, I smile. It puts me in such a great mood. Today I was out, like, walking around, and I saw this great, because I was, in my normal clothes, and I saw this guy with a massive big hat. I was like, oh, another hat person. And it makes me smile. And I look at other people, like, getting bent out of shape about the way someone's dressed, or if you see, I remember a couple of weeks ago, there was a guy at the bus stop, and he was an older guy, and he had very badly applied makeup on and a little woolly hat, but he kind of looked great. And I just thought, I wanted to go up and hug him. I wasn't offended. I was like, oh, bless him. Look at his little tights. And, I feel like anyone that goes out there and is brave enough to, I mean, I don't know if you have to say be yourself, because everything is a fake identity. We're all pretending to be someone. Nobody is really who they think they are. We're all in this weird movie. And now we've got this little TV thing that we carry around. And, and we can just, be obsessed about things 24/7. And often things that have absolutely nothing to do with you. They don't affect you in any way. Mm-hmm. I've got really smart friends who say to me, I don't mind trans people, but, and then it's like, you start, because they say everything after but, everything before but is bullshit. When people say, oh, I don't mind,
it's
but,
then
what's coming is what they really think.
Yeah.
And, I try. One of the reasons I left X, I'm not saying I won't go back at some point, but what's interesting, my leaving post has had like 1.7 million, comments. And so there's kind of a power in silence. So I quite like that. If it builds, and if it builds enough, then I'll just go back and post my next album.
Well, that's the way to do it. It's just like, use it when it's helpful to promote or just spread the word.
I'm a Gemini, though. I love having the last word. I mean, it is overrated, but I feel like, because my manager would be like, why are you arguing with someone with 13 followers? I'm like, I just needed to tell them about themselves. But I think that stuff keeps you human, though.
Well, absolutely. You mentioned AI, and I wanted to ask you about the AI song that you put out, or that you've been working on. Is that right?
Loads. Like literally, I have I've been using AI for quite some time. And I think that, I've kind of worked out this really interesting relationship with it as a tool for writing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you sit down with a musician, you're going to do things like, okay, try something that's a bit Fleetwood Mac, or try something that's a bit Beatlesy, or try this, or try that, or let's listen to some Bowie. You're always referencing something. Most people pretend they're not, but as I've got older, I'm much more kind of open about putting on Roxy music in the studio, putting on a Bowie record, putting on something obscure, a dance track, and saying, this is a feeling I want. But I think more than anything, for me, the words are so key.
Mm-hmm.
I think the words provide the context. So once you've got the words, people think that melody is more important than words, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have something to say, you'll find a way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
So, melody is something I think should always come secondary, unless it absolutely hits you straight away. If you're going,
If you have if somebody
you
comes,
know what that's worth, just something like that. It's like, that's a hook, right? Or Karma Chameleon, it's like, it's kind of in there. But I think if you've got the idea,
mm-hmm.
you'll find a way to make it. Mm-hmm. So I feel with me, what I concentrate on so much is what I hear. Some people come out with the most profound things all the time, and I'm like, that's a hook. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like a few weeks ago, I was talking to my makeup artist about politics in London, and she was saying, well, one divided nation, and I was like, that sounds like Parliament. I just suddenly went, that's a hook. And mm-hmm. actually, the most brilliant things are really simple. Mm-hmm. Learning to do something that's simple but direct is real magic when you're writing songs. But when I hear other artists slagging off AI, I know I'm onto something good.
Well, I think it's the same debate that's happening in movies. I mean, I forgot who it was. It was I think it was Martin Scorsese or somebody who said recently, like that filmmakers should embrace AI, instead of trying to and that depending on how it's used, it can actually be helpful and be part of a massive new wave of filmmaking. And I think in the same way with music, a lot of people are like,
you still need your imagination. You
right.
still, in fact, the idea that it makes you lazier, it does if you're trying to look for something obvious. If you're trying to create a pop hit that sounds like something on the radio, AI will give you all day long. Yeah. But if you start playing around with, almost using poetry, mm-hmm. describing what you're looking for, not say do this or do that, come up with the melody and then mess around by mixing things that don't go together. And the great news is if it doesn't work, you just wipe it mm-hmm. and start again. And every so often you'll get something that is so magical. We've been touring recently and there are 4 songs in our set that I wrote with AI, but then took to the band and reached and changed them. And adding that human aspect always makes it sound better. Mm-hmm. There's something about feeling that you can't, somebody said to me the other day, AI can't act. Whenever you see someone talking in an AI video, they sound like they're going to pull up their ass.
100%.
It's like, hi, how are you? And you're like, AI. You
can tell, at least as of now, you can definitely tell,
Especially with some of the gay stuff, you think, oh my God, he's gorgeous, but that's a robot.
I've seen a few of those. Where you're like, whoa, what is that? But then you're like, oh yeah, that's fake. That doesn't exist. That's a fantasy. AI.
But you do get some absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. The ads are really funny. Where you're just like, I don't know if you've seen on Facebook, they have like heated rivalry, but like a weird recreation, but I don't know. It's bizarre.
Well, I think that it's another tool. It's not the be all and end all, but it's a really great way to get ideas. So, if I wake up at 4 a.m. and I can't sleep and I want to write something, I don't have to rely on anybody. And that is massive freedom for me as a top line writer. I write melodies and words. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be able to call up Roy Hay at 4 a.m. and say, "Oh, get up! I've got this idea." That doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Maybe it happens when you're like 20, but when you're in your 60s, you know, it's like getting people to react to musical ideas is not that easy. So, and I write every day.
Wow, you
When
do.
I have a row about something, I even wrote yesterday, Kissing My Ex Goodbye. I actually wrote a song
Wow.
about my leaving ex. I thought, well, I got to write a song about it because, you know, I love to play on words, Kissing My Ex Goodbye. It's obviously about a lover, but it's also about kind of, you know, mixed metaphors and, you know, and it's fun, you know, if I'm on the road and I have a row with the boys, I'll go and write a song rather than sort of having a pointless argument about nothing. I think, well, actually, when I use this rage and put it into music and come up with something cool, you know.
Well, what a time it's been. I mean, between the documentary, which is obviously has been a big success and got a huge positive reaction, plus the touring. I mean, you've had some massive shows this summer with Culture Club and Eurovision. And on top of all that, you have another tour coming up in December too. I mean,
Well, the Eurovision thing was such a great thing to do because since doing that, we have got loads of gigs in Europe. Like literally, we're playing in Germany next week. We're in Italy on the weekend. We're in Switzerland, France. So that's kind of the reason I did it. I thought, do you know what? 30 million people do it, you know, and it's been very rewarding for me because we've been now getting these gigs all over Europe. You know, Culture Club were massive in Europe, you know,
again,
and I've toured with, you know, Belinda in Europe as well, but it's just been a long time since we've been there. We tend to concentrate on America and Canada. So, you know, doing Eurovision really opened up Europe for me, which is great because people saw me and thought, oh, you know, he's still doing it and he's wearing a skirt.
and it looks great. It sounds great. And no, absolutely, 100%. I mean, it doesn't get much big. That doesn't get much bigger than that audience, you know. in terms of
Absolutely. And it was actually a very sweet experience. It was very nice. It's like you go into this cocoon where everyone is kind of gorgeous and friendly and, you know, and the fans are like obsessed. It's, you know, I really enjoyed my first Eurovision experience. And I would definitely love to write a song for the UK or
That's a great
do
idea.
it in some other capacity, you know. It's
That would be huge.
it would be good, but you know, we'll see. Watch this space.
I mean, given the experiences that you've had, I mean, aside from your professional, all the amazing stuff happening on that front, what are your feelings about the state of the world right now and the state of the community? Like, and having and traveling and experiencing different countries and different people, and like, how are you feeling on a personal level about the state of
I
affairs?
sometimes get nervous about going to certain places, but actually, when I go there, it's not what I think. You know, I might read something in the newspaper or see something online and think, oh, do I want to go there? But actually, I would say that most people are quite nice. I don't know if that's me being super naive or just super Gemini or whatever.
No, I think
but
it's true.
I think you have to have faith in humanity. Otherwise, you'll lose your mind. So I cannot walk around fearing people, being frightened of speaking my mind. And I can still run fast. So
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, it is encouraging to hear, given that you've been in places like Italy that, you know, I mean, I've been, you know, I've over the years, I mean, it's a beautiful country and, you know, but it is known, it's, you know, in general for being perhaps a little more socially conservative, you know.
it is, but you know what? Italian people I find very warm. And, you know, I think anywhere you go in the world, you know, you can upset people by saying the wrong thing, particularly in America. You know, American people are gorgeous, conservative people are gorgeous. You know, I've got Republican fans, but you know, there are certain eggshells you have to step on in certain situations. And I don't need to antagonize people. I used to love doing that when I was 20. You know, it was fun, but now I'm like, can I be bothered? You know, when I was like younger, if I was walking down the road dressed up and somebody was like going to bump into me, I would go for it. Now I just avoid it.
No.
I say to my friends, if somebody calls you a name on the street, don't even react. Walk on. You're never going to change their point of view, and you don't need to put yourself in danger. So I think my radar is much more in line now. But because I tried to be positive in my personal and private life, I do a lot of work on my spiritual self, in terms of clearing up my head and not holding on to grievances and not thinking everybody hates me and not feeling bad about the world.
Are
I
you,
think
do you still practice Buddhism? Do you still have?
Yeah. I practice Buddhism. I follow this thing called the Three Principles, which I've been sort of doing for about 5 years, which is, it's not really a practice. It's more about learning to empty your mind, like get rid of negative thoughts.
Rubbish.
I have this thing that I wear around my neck that's amazing called the One, which is like a frequency kind of magnet thing.
Oh yeah.
So I got
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I got it, and I got it in America when I was in Vegas. I have to say, I think it's really helped me. I mean, I was kind of on the road to kind of being a bit more chill anyway. And, I feel like I'm getting to the point now where I realize I don't have to have opinions about everything. I don't have to comment, and I struggle with that, which is why yesterday I was like, I got to get effects. I have to get off this side because I don't know, something astrology is going on with Geminis. I feel very argumentative. I feel like I want to fight with everyone, and I have to resist it because it's really not helpful.
I know what you mean. No, I understand.
What's star sign are you again? I remember we talked about
I'm
this.
I'm a Taurus.
Taurus.
It's funny though. I believe that stuff, without a doubt, is 100% spot on because my mom is about as Leo, as much of a Leo as any Leo I've ever met.
And PK also, he's a Leo. He's the most Leo I've ever known. Totally.
And then to your point, my mom has definitely mellowed out a little bit over the years in a good way, like because she used to be hard, fucking core, for lack of a better term. But in a good way, like she had a lot of power.
With lions, whether they're male or female, you have to learn that, because my manager PK is a Leo, but they're very sensitive. They can be very insensitive. Say the wrong thing. They've got these big paws and they say the wrong thing. And you're like, what did you say? But then if you give it back to them, they can be very upset very easily. So it's about learning the lion is basically quite gentle underneath.
Mm-hmm. No, it's
you
true.
just have to learn that they can give it, but they can't necessarily take it.
That's true. I realize my mom has she's gotten older. She shows more of her sweet, gentle, sweet side versus before when things were a little more hardcore. But she's always been great. Don't get me wrong. But no, to your point, I think it's true. It's a rough world out there. But I agree with you. It's like social media is. The only reason I'm on there is because I'm on X, but I use it to post my podcasts and stuff. But I try not to spend too much time getting it because people say some really horrible, not just I don't mean to me, but just when you go onto start reading, what's trending and stuff, and you go down to the comments, people say some really horrible things to each other.
What's crazy is you can put up like a recipe for a cake and somebody would just attack you and you're like, what?
That's true.
What has that got to do with the cake? It's like, what's interesting is generally people are nice. Mm-hmm. You get like 30 lovely messages and one nasty little one. And, and some people have this ability to be negative in a very short sentence. Mm-hmm. I feel like context is so important.
Yep.
The way someone says something, I've got a couple of like fans that just always say negative things. And you think, do you actually like me?
Right. Yeah. It's like a weird like frenemy thing or something where they're, where it's like the vibe is off and you're like, what do you mean by that? Or like it's like, are they doing it intentionally like a weird passive aggressive way? Or I think
you have to learn when you're quick-witted, sometimes you have to learn not to always quit and say the first thing that comes in your mind, because actually often if you take a breath before you answer a text or reply to an email or even answer a question, usually you will not come up with that first comment that you're going to make. I mean, I've got some, gay friends that are so machine gun, like literally it's like, 20 minutes of insults before you even get to say hello. And I feel like we're all mellowing a little bit now. Like, all right, do we have to insult each other before we?
24/7. Yeah, I know what you mean. No, the gays can be a little gays on X. That's a combination that can be deadly too. Just like gays on X quipping about, whether it's politics or pop culture.
Well, that sounds like a song. Gays on
X. Hey, that's another starting point for a song. No, but I admire you, obviously, for many reasons, but the ability to, like, considering how much you have going on, to be able to just say, this isn't, I don't need this noise and this distraction and all this crap going on. But I know you have a tour coming up in December. What else do you have on the horizon? Is the biopic thing still in the?
It's still in the. I'm working on a new version of my musical Taboo. That's the next big thing that I'm doing, and I'm working with an actor and a writer called Jack Holden, who won was it Olivier for his play Ken Rex, which is amazing. It's on in New York at the moment. Mm-hmm. So we're working on a new version of Taboo, which should be maybe in a year, but we're close to sort of finishing Act 1, and I guess that's the thing I'm the most excited about, doing a new version of that musical, because a lot of people said it was too ahead of its time. It was too soon when we did it 25 years ago.
Wow.
So that's a big thing. And then next year, I don't know, I have this kind of idea to kind of start a new band, like another sound, something different. I don't know what yet. Wow. And I'm experimenting with AI to see where I could go musically. That is, not that I will never do what I've done before, but I'd like to just do something a bit
different.
Like Tin Machine, but a little bit more commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that I am basically a pop writer. I like to write melodic songs. And, maybe I'll start a rock and roll band.
That would be fucking cool.
I feel like rockabilly. I feel like you never hear rockabilly right now. And it feels like someone has to bring it back.
That's a really cool idea. I would love that. That sounds really cool. Well, I'm whatever happens next, I'm very excited to see it. And I really, really appreciate the time. Thank you, George.
Thank you, babe. And I'll see you soon. Give my love to your mom, yeah?
She sends her love. Of course, I told her we were going to talk today, and she sends her love. So thank you, George.
Thank you so much. God bless.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you to our incredible guest, Boy George. Please like, share, subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and see you next week. Thank you for joining me today on Duke's Download. This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by me, Duke Mason, and produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig. Original music composed by Nell Balaban. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review. It really helps others to discover the show. I'd love to stay connected with you, so join the conversation by following me at James Duke Mason on Instagram and X, or by emailing me at questions@dukesdownload.com.